Here we are out at the forge again this morning. It's raining a little bit outside. Did a little fishing last week, did pretty good. Enough where my mama wants me to take her fishing, and if Lord willing, we're going to be going fishing this evening if I get enough stuff done. Got several now, so I've got to get the heat treat started on. Haven't done a video in a while, so figured I'd better make one today. Now, I seldom work in junk, but today we're going to be working with a used lawnmower blade. Just going to see what we can do with this, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, oh well, haven't lost any material. Hope you enjoy and have a great day. And we'll start out just flattening everything out. Now, like always, I'm not doing anything on the power hammer that I couldn't do on the anvil. So you can do the same. Start working it down for width. Now the end out there is so thin, I'm having to be really careful that I don't roll it over on itself. Mark it for what I think is going to be my finished length. And get back to working it down to a usable width and thickness. Yeah, that end out there is really thin. It'll buckle in a minute and then I'll end up with a cold shut. Gotta be really careful. There, now I just whipped it off the length. Makes it a little easier to work it down to the width I need and the thickness I need. I just cut it off with an angle grinder, but could have cut it off with a hot cutter on the anvil with the hardy cutter, or cut it off with a chisel, hacking the power hammer. Didn't do it, just used the grinder. Now we're getting to be about right. I see how I've carefully driven the thin end back into itself so it's thickened up. I do believe it's going to work out just fine. Yep, that's going to be good usable stock. Now, I've used this steel before and it works out pretty good with a water quench. Oil quench leaves it a little too soft. And right there, my power hammer overheated and stopped. So I've got to wait for it to cool down. That's okay, we'll go to the anvil. Just using my 4-pound hammer to start drawing down the tip. Make sure it stays flat. Now I'll mark where I want my handle to start. Back to the fire. Back to work on isolating that handle. Now I've got the heel of the blade established. I need to work on knocking that handle down a little more and drawing it out. I've got too much material here in my tongs, but that's okay. When it gets to be that time, I'll just take it over to the angle grinder and whip it off the right length. It's looking pretty good. Fairly happy with this. I don't want to make anything too complicated this time. Just a nice simple handle, simple blade. I want to keep my spine thick and just make a fairly steep bevel. I want to make almost a Scandi grind on this edge. Start working the bevels in. There we go, that's pretty good. Got my heel established. Flatten everything back out, even everything back out. And back in the fire. Now we'll start working our bevel out a little more along the length, trying to keep it even. I'm leaving the edge pretty thick because you hammer too thin to start with, and then the blade shape starts getting away from you. You can't straighten it back up. You'll end up rolling the edge and getting a cold shut right here. The only reason I can get by with doing this is because that edge is still nice and thick. Otherwise, never hammer on the beveled edge. You forge it down too thin and then you hammer on it, it'll roll over and you'll get a cold shut every time. And that's bad business. I'm liking this pretty good. The bevels are nice and even. I wanted that simple shape. Suits me. Now, this 4-pound hammer makes quick work of hand forging. Just to even things up. I'm about ready to call this good enough, and just go whack the handle off of the angle grinder and clean the profile up. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Now we've all been cleaned up. Cleaned up the profile on the grinder. Bevel came in really nice. Gonna throw this thing back in the forge and get it red hot. And put it in a bucket of vermiculite to anneal. And we'll heat treat it, fit the handles, and call it good. And I'm skipping way ahead, but it's the best place to put this. Here's the finished product. And we'll go on to the outro. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. It didn't go nearly as smoothly as I'd hoped, but sometimes it doesn't. That's just the way it is. Power hammer overheated and shut down on me. That happens sometimes. It's not an industrial hammer. It's a tire hammer I bought from a guy that makes those. He has the rights to that type, to the plans to that type of hammer, and he makes them. Works pretty good in cold weather, but when it gets hot, it sometimes doesn't like to run. But that's okay. That's why we have a 4-pound hand hammer, and well, I think most of you guys like to see hand forging anyway, so that's what we did. I've made a few knives before out of that particular type of mower blade, and they've come out pretty good, so we'll see how this one does. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. If you've got some ideas for future content, by all means, leave us a message and let us know what it is. Be sure and like and subscribe. We'd really love for you to do that. We're still trying to get to that coveted 1,000 subscriber mark, and we're not anywhere close. But we do appreciate your time and appreciate you watching. Thanks, and God bless.